Welcome back to the Double Leg. I'm one half of the show, Hey Job Picks. The other half of the show, the Parlay, joining me in to break down some UFC Macau. We're in China this Saturday. We're hot off the pay-per-view card of UFC 309. My goodness, did Jon Jones look terrible. This will be the roast of Jon Jones starting off the night. Stipe Miocic was a punching bag, but Jon Jones got it done. Round 3. Spinning back kick. Oh my God, guys. The spinning back kick was the highlight. I mean, I think Jon was just setting up the highlight, honestly. And he got it done. Got to give it to him. The Jon Jones Jake Paul parlay might have just been the lock of the year. I wish I would have just thrown my whole bankroll on that, but it is what it is. The card was okay. Honestly, didn't think it was the greatest. I didn't think it was the greatest on paper. I didn't think it was the greatest how it played out. Good amount of decisions. All the biggest favorites. Ruffy, Nickel, Onama, all won by decision, which that parlay would have paid crazy if you took those guys by decision. But how'd the card go for you? What'd you think of the card overall?
Man, I made one giant mistake on the card, and I was taking Mickey Gall for big. And honestly, dude, all Mickey Gall had to do is not get knocked out or submitted in round 1.
Fucking Mick, bro.
And he gets knocked out by a guy who's never recorded a knockout in his life. Like, legitimately, never recorded a knockout. I mean, he goes in there and he takes Basil Hafez's best shots for 3 rounds in his last fight and comes in here and gets knocked out by Ramiz Brahimov. Like, I mean, he was tagging him with some good shots, too, on the feet. Mickey was. And I don't know what happened, man. I truly believe Ramiz was going to fade. He was going to eat some big shots, and he was going to fail with the wrestling. And did not happen that way. So that put me down immediately, like right immediately. I mean, I hit the fight not to go to the distance at pretty good plus money in that fight too. Kind of offset, a fourth of the loss. Oh, man. But other than that, like, Damon Jackson looked terrible. Marcus McGee was my other biggest play of the night. That one hit. But some of these props just couldn't hit, man. And, it was just brutal. It was a brutal night. -7 units for me.
Yeah, bad night for me too. I mean, it's been a rough stretch the past 3 to 4 weeks for me. I mean, I just can't catch a break. I mean, I was also on Mickey Gall, brought him my first KO of his career. Something that I never saw coming. And then Basil Hoffa has never been finished in his career, and he gets finished. I lose the +3.5. He was up on one of the judges' scorecards. He won a round on every single judge's scorecard. Just got to get to a decision, and we cash our bet. But no, he's going to take a right hand. I guess the old gloves came into effect there with the Oban Elliott KO. Oban ain't got no power in those hands, but apparently now he does with the old gloves. So shout out to Oban for picking up a KO victory, but he cost me some coin there. And then I'm shooting myself in the foot, man. We sat on the show last week, and I'm like, I like Eduardo Mora. I just laid off.
Mm-hmm.
I could have got her at +130 at that time. Wish I would have pulled the trigger on that one. She won. And then that Tybura Denise fight. I was going back and forth between the under 1.5 and the fight to end by KO. Of course, I went with the under 1.5. It goes over, but the fight ends by KO. And I was also looking at Tybura by KO, which would have been a nice little prop at +525, and did not play it. So, a lot of spots that I was eyeing up that I just didn't pull the trigger, and then the ones that I did just didn't go through. So it's been that type of a run for me. And hopefully these last 3 cards, I could turn it around. At least I had a 5-unit play on Jake Paul on Friday. Kind of wish I made that a 10-unit play.
Yeah.
That could have just been an anchor of a parlay.
That should have been a empty your account 100-unit type of play. That was the freest money of the century.
Yeah, so at least we hit that. But overall on the card, the DFS was actually decent. We went up 2 units on DFS. That's always kind of been a more consistent for me. But on the night for the straight bets and the parlays, I was down about 5 units. So on the night, we were -3 units. So it was an L for me. But overall, can't get too hung up on it. We're going to the UFC Macau this Saturday. We got an early start time, 3 a.m. Eastern. This card is pretty rough on the eyeballs. Road to the UFC tournament championships. We had one fight get canceled, And that was one that I was actually kind of excited for because I thought that Kang Ji guy looked pretty good. And I had bet on him at underdog odds, and then the fight gets canceled. So the one fight I was really looking forward to from the road to the UFC gets canceled. We're still left with 3. Got a lot of Chinese, a lot of Asians on this card. So you're going to have to bear with me with these pronunciations. But what do you say? Let's hop into it.
Let's do it. Let's do it.
First fight of the night. We got Maheshate taking on Nicholas Motta. Nicholas Motta is the underdog. Maheshate, the minus 230 favorite. I think he's down to about minus 200 now. We're going to go through and give you our picks. If you want the bets, jump in the Home Fight Picks premium membership. But who are you picking on this one to start off the night? I mean, the 24-year-old, 7 years younger, favorite? What do you think?
I mean, everything points to him. He should have the upper hand and everything. I mean, he's fighting in a region of China. I mean, making Nicholas Motta fly all the way to that side of the world to fight him. Like you said, he's 7 years younger. A lot of the times in these lower weight classes like this, where skill matters a ton. I like the younger fighters. Maheshate is dangerous with the hands. He's going to be, 3 inches taller than him. He's longer. He's actually, I think he's actually a pretty skilled boxer if he just lets his hands go at times. Sometimes he gets caught staring, and we've seen guys be able to hit him and drop him pretty hard, which is the one thing that makes me concerned here. When he fought Slaviclaus, I mean, he obviously got the lights put out pretty badly there in that second round. Before that, loses to Rafa Garcia, but he's knocking guys out like Steve Garcia, who is just a dog in there. Beat Gabriel Benitez, close fight, not a great look. But this guy, I mean, he racks in some wins every now and then over guys he should. Now, in theory, I think Nicholas Motta is a guy he should beat, but Nicholas Motta is pretty dangerous, especially early in the first round. He'll kind of sit and wait for you, and if you make one mistake, he has the power to put anybody out. We saw him finish Tom Nolan. That was a great win, kind of a prospect buster there. Got dominated by Trey Ogden, flatlined by Manuel Torres. But, if he connects, he can land. I do think Maheshate is more talented than some of these guys that he's beat, like a Cameron Van Camp, and, the guy on the Contender Series that he beat by decision too. So, yeah, overall, I'm going to take Maheshate to get it done here, but definitely not going to be in any parlays or anything due to the fact that we've seen him get dropped and we've seen Nicholas Motta really showcase some good power in his career too.
Yeah, this screams to me like Nicholas Motta's getting sent over to China to get chinned. And I think I could see it happen. I mean, Nicholas Motta's been knocked out a good amount of times. And to be honest, he was supposed to get ran through by Tom Nolan, and he just came through and spoiled the party. So it looks like they're trying to set him up for a loss here against Maheshate. Maheshate really ain't all that, but he is 24. He's probably still going to be improving, I hope. And realistically, on paper, I think he should be able to win the striking exchanges at range. It's just when he gets in, when Nicholas Motta gets inside, then he's going to be a lot more dangerous. Maheshate, I don't think is the greatest in boxing range, but at range, he can land a lot of kicks. I think he'll win most of the minutes. He's just got to avoid the big shot, and I think he should be able to win this one on home turf. So I'll take Maheshate for the pick. We can move on to another nice little matchup here. Long Xiao taking on Quang Bang Lee. Lee comes in as a slight underdog. He is the older fighter. He is the one with a true UFC fight. Long Xiao got a loss on road to the UFC finals, which was on a UFC card, but it technically wasn't a UFC fight because it was against Chang Ho Lee. It was a split decision, very close fight. I think it could have gone either way. And I think this one could pretty much go either way as well. This one, to me, seems like a pick 'em, rightfully so. And Long Xiao is the younger guy coming in here. Quang Lee is a fighter that trains in the US, and he's going to have to make the trip over to China. So they got to take that into account. What do you think?
Yeah. For Long Xiao, I remember betting on him against Chang Ho Lee in that fight, and definitely a close fight. But, after watching that, losing that bet, and just kind of watching him again and taping him again for this fight, he goes to really close decisions with like everybody. And you saw it against Chang Ho Lee. That fight, like 85% of that fight took place in the clinch, where he would have Chang Ho Lee up against the fence. Lee would reverse position, and the only strikes that were landed the whole fight were knees and short little elbows and stuff. Or it was just Long Xiao, throwing these really weak shots to the liver. like in the clinch. So it's hard to win fights and win minutes when that's all you're doing. And, against a guy like Quang Lee, he showed he's a pretty strong guy when he fought Chris Gutierrez, had a couple of takedowns, looked good at moments in the fight. But, dude, so low volume. And I can't tell against Chris Gutierrez if that's just because Chris's footwork's good and his boxing and kicks are really good. And he just throws so many strikes that it's hard to get your own offense going. But, I mean, 2 takedowns on Chris, 16 strikes the whole entire fight. To Chris's 60 strikes. It just wasn't a great look here. I think he's stronger than a guy like Chang Ho Lee, though, and can get off of that cage. And I think he'll be able to showcase a little more of his offense in this spot. Long Xiao, though, when I did bet on him against Chang Ho Lee, it was just such a disappointment because he just didn't really do anything to separate himself or like try to win the fight. It was like he was scared to fight at range. He didn't want to go to the ground. He just wanted to stay right there in the clinch, hold him against the cage. And at this point in the UFC, in today's age, it's just not going to win you fights. So I got to go Quang Lee.
Yeah, I'm looking at the stats, man. 108 of the significant strikes landed in that fight were in the clinch. It was a terrible fight to watch, man. They were just like holding each other and then knees. And yeah, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Long Zhao is super talented in any facet, and that's kind of the deal with a lot of these road to the UFC fighters. So coming into the UFC now off a loss, I'm like, is this guy just on here because he's from China? I mean, he lost the road to the UFC championship, but he's still getting signed to the UFC. Kind of weird. Quang Lee, on the other hand, I think it was a tough debut, but I actually thought it was pretty impressive how he took the back of Gutierrez in round 2. Just jumped right on the back, locked in the body triangle, and then was threatening from there. And he had a chance to win that fight, which would have been a pretty big upset. I don't think Quang Lee is some great prospect at all. I mean, he's 33. Fighting at bantamweight, that's not really a great age to be coming into the UFC and try to make a run. So this one to me is at pick'em, and I think it's pretty accurate that way. I'm going to just side with Quang Lee because I think Long Zhao striking at range is not very good. He's going to need to get into that clinch, and I think Quang Lee can handle himself in the clinch. We're really talking Asian here.
Quang in the clinch.
Quang in the clinch is going to be able to handle himself. And I think, maybe if Long Zhao he's a guy that shoots a lot of takedowns. So I think Quang Lee's grappling could maybe hold up here. So I'll just side with Quang Lee in this one. Fought a little bit better at competition. He's had some decent knockouts on the regional scene recently, and he's got a lot of submissions on his record. So if the fight hits the ground, I think he'll be all right. So I'll take Quang Lee. Not a confident one, though, for me. I'll probably be laying off. All right, we got Loner Kavanagh taking on Jose Ochoa. Ochoa making his UFC debut. So was Kavanagh, but Kavanagh had a hell of a knockout on the Contender Series. I think that was the first fight of the Contender Series this season, and he started it off with a bang. I mean, he put out Antoine Ho. I was pretty high on Antoine Ho going into that fight, and Kavanagh clipped him on the chin and made it look easy. Kavanagh, very, very solid striker, Cage Warriors guy. I'm not a Cage Warriors believer, but I believe in Kavanagh, man. I'm watching this guy fight. I think he's very sharp. I think his footwork is solid. I really haven't seen too much of his grappling on film, just because he's fighting in Cage Warriors, and a lot of times there's just not a lot of grapplers in Cage Warriors. But he's a very solid striker, very fast, has power in his hands, younger guy, and making his debut at 25. And Ochoa, on the other hand, he hasn't fought in a year, and he's supposed to fight in the Contender Series, but instead gets the nod just to come into the UFC. So he hasn't been tested on the Contender Series, but he looks like an all-action fighter. I mean, he's from Shoot the Box, so you kind of expect that. Young guy, Peruvian Shoot the Box guy, so you got to have a little asterisk towards that. But this should be a good scrap. I'm actually kind of a fan of the flyweight division, and I think these guys are going to come and throw down. What do you think?
Yeah, I think this might honestly be like one of the most technical, higher level looking fights on this entire card. I mean, Loner Kavanagh, good everywhere. When he gets space, he's super fast with the hands. Like the shot he hit Antoine Ho with on the Contender Series, I don't think Antoine Ho ever saw it coming. Right on the chin, put him out. But if you watch, I mean, Ochoa, this guy's pretty good too. He's going to be taller, longer. he uses it to his advantage too. He's very patient on the feet. He throws his kicks well. He mixes it up. I mean, he's got submissions on his record. I've seen him shoot takedowns as well. And he's at that camp there where those guys are hard to put out. Like, even if they're not skilled, it's hard to finish those guys out of shoot the box. But I actually think this kid is very skilled. I don't know if he's going to come in here and beat Loner Kavanagh. But I do think Kavanagh is being a slightly overhyped here after beating Antoine Ho. I mean, at the end of the day, guys like Kavanagh and Antoine Ho and even Jose Ochoa, I mean, they don't have a ton of experience. So, I mean, you don't really know what happens when these guys get deeper in fights and they face a little bit of adversity. You look at Ochoa, he's got a lot of first-round finishes, second round. And you look at Kavanagh, and, his last fight didn't exactly last too long either. So I'll be interested to see how these guys handle themselves later in the fight. I'm going to take Loner Kavanagh for the pick. I think he's probably just a tad more polished all around, a little more, oh man, I want to say composed, but you just really don't know, especially later in the fight, like I said. But I'm not going to be surprised if this kid, Ochoa, makes this a very, very close fight. Hurts Kavanagh at times, and we have an absolute all-out war.
Yeah, I think Kavanagh is going to be the more skilled fighter, but at the end of the day, it is a cage fight. And I think Ochoa's forward pressure and just all-out aggression could turn this into a much closer fight than the line would entail, if Kavanagh can't get him out of there. And I don't think Ochoa is going to be chinny by any means. I mean, he's a 23-year-old guy who doesn't have a lot of miles on. He's only got 7 professional fights, but I think he's going to be throwing the kitchen sink at Kavanagh. So Kavanagh's got to be ready for that. He's going to have to try to pick his shots. His footwork's got to be on point. And from what I've seen, I think it'll be there. I think Kavanagh's skills overall on the feet are really, really, really good. A lot higher level than a lot of these guys in the UFC. So I'm going to take Kavanagh for the pick, but minus 390, it's a little bit too much in my opinion. Just because if this fight goes to a decision and Ochoa doesn't die, like his forward pressure, his aggression, it might just look good enough to the judges to where they like him going forward. They like him throwing these big looping shots that maybe don't connect fully, but he just looks like he's trying to end the fight all the time, and Kavanagh's trying to find his spots. So Kavanagh is the pick, but yeah, minus 390, 2 guys making their debut. Little bit suspect. So, yeah. All right, more flyweights. We got Carlos Hernandez coming in as the favorite against Naim Jorgel Tumendemberel, sitting at plus 152. This guy, Tumendemberel, is all action. I mean, he's kind of like Jose Ochoa, but even more aggressive.
A little more wild, too.
This dude on the feet is just throwing haymakers, and he's looking to end the fight at all times. He's had a couple fights on road to the UFC. He was supposed to fight Andre Lima back in June. Excuse me. He pulled out of that fight, and now he's getting a spot more in his region of the world. His fights in the UFC, or the road to the UFC, were against 2 Thailand guys, Top Noy Kiram, split decision, and then a round 1 rear naked choke against Peter Danisel. Carlos Hernandez, bro. I don't know what this guy has done to the UFC, but they just keep feeding him to these prospects. I mean, he got fed to Alan Nascimento. I know Nascimento is not a very active fighter, but he's pretty damn good.
Yeah.
And then Tetsuro Taira and Ray Saruya. So he's had a rough strength of schedule, but you got to take that into account where this guy's fighting really high level fighters, and he's looked okay. Last fight against Saruya had a lot of hype coming into the UFC. He won the 3rd round, just wasn't able to stuff the wrestling coming at him in the first 2, but he survived that one. He's coming in as a favorite now. I mean, this guy's been an underdog for most of his UFC career. So now he's a favorite. What do you think?
Yeah, I don't like that aspect of it. I wish this line was a lot closer because I'd be way more inclined to put something on Carlos Hernandez. I mean, you look at his record, like you alluded to, this guy's fighting really high level of competition in his last couple, at least. Tetsuro Taira just fought in a title eliminator against Brandon Royval and went tooth and nail. It came down to the 5th round with him. Ray Saruya, I mean, this guy was this huge submission threat that everybody hyped up. He's going to go out there and submit Carlos Hernandez, and Carlos dogged it out with him on the mat and had moments in that 3rd round. This guy on the feet, this Niam Hargel, he's going to be hard to deal with, I think, early. He's a forward pressure, wings, bombs, and he's just going to kind of stay in your face and try to throw a kitchen sink at you. I actually think this is the first time you're going to see Carlos Hernandez offensively be able to wrestle. I think he's going to be able to implement his own ground game offensively instead of defensively like he's had to in the past. And I think he's decent down there. Like everything, all signs show, he's hanging with Ray Sarua and Alan. Alan Nascimento submitted him, but he's a pretty savage submission artist. But that Ray Sarua fight, it showed he knows exactly what he's doing. He's pretty good there as well. And even if like Niam Hargel doesn't go out there and spark Hernandez or finish him in the first round, Hernandez is solid enough and technical enough on the feet that I think he's gonna hold his own there too. But I expect him to duck under some of these big explosive movements and combinations. Get the fight to the ground. I think he could fight him that way. And Hernandez has a good gas tank too. I don't know, not so much this guy. He's very explosive and he burns hot. A lot of times, he's making his debut. That's not a really good combination to go against the guy who can drag you into deep waters and who does have a gas tank and high level experience. For those reasons, man, I think it's Carlos Hernandez.
Yeah, I think so too. I think if he comes into this one with a solid game plan of don't get into these big exchanges, duck under, look for some offensive grappling, I think he can win this fight. Because Tumendemberel, he's just so aggressive that he leaves so many openings. I mean, this guy was getting taken down 6 times by a Muay Thai guy. Like Top Noi on the road to the UFC, he's a Muay Thai guy. He took him down 6 times. And Naim Jargle, he's got a good amount of submissions on his record, but I got to question the level of competition for that. I don't really think he's some great grappler, but he's a guy that will look for the finish if the fight is on the ground. And I think Carlos Hernandez can handle himself there. And I think Carlos on the feet, he's going to need to get a little bit of respect, with everything that's coming at him. But even if he doesn't, duck under, get those takedowns or clinch him up. And I think he can win this fight. I think he's favored for a reason. Might be a little bit too much at minus 200 really, but I'd probably put him at like minus 140, minus 150. But either way, I'm going to take Carlos Hernandez for the pick. That brings us to the road to the UFC tournament finals. We got 3 in a row. First one, women's MMA. Zhao Feng taking on Ming Shi. Ming Shi comes in at the plus 230 underdog. Feng minus 310. 22 years of age for Feng. 29. She will be 30 at the time of the fight is Ming Shi. To be honest, Ming Shi should not be here, boys.
Yep.
I don't think she should be here. I don't think the UFC expected her to be here, to be honest. And Zhao Feng, I think they are looking at her like, yeah, I think we'd much rather have a 22-year-old 5'7", 66-inch reach than a 30-year-old 5'2", 60-inch reach come into the UFC. With that said, Zhao Feng, she looks okay. She looks like she is serviceable enough to beat a Ming Shi here. Her last win was against Miki Motono on the road to the UFC. It was a decision victory, and then she just ran through this Kieran Singh in the first round. Ming Shi has scrapped it out and weaseled her way into this spot. Split decision victory her last time, and then a unanimous decision her first time. Both fights were fairly close, but she just found ways to win. But in this matchup, she's so much shorter, so much smaller than Zhao Feng. I think she needs to close the distance and get some grappling going, and she has not landed a takedown in her road to the UFC fight. So I don't know that I can really expect her to do that. So it's Zhao Feng for me. What do you think?
Yeah, I think Ming Shi is gonna struggle in this spot a little bit. I mean, if you watch her last fight, she got taken down 4 times, and when I saw that, wasn't good. I was like, okay, she's pretty good at getting back to her feet though. But when she gets there, it's almost like she either got caught waiting for the takedowns, and when she would get punched, her reactions just weren't very good. Like it almost seemed like she was stunned every punch she got hit with, and the girl she was fighting did not hit that hard. Like she's a technical striker, throws a good body kick, but just doesn't have much on it. And going up against a girl who you look at You look at Feng, man, in there, she looks way taller than 5'7" compared to her opponents. I think it's just because her opponents are so small in this weight class, but she is very long. She's very tall. Her kicks are pretty good. She's actually got some pretty decent striking, I think. And I don't think she's worried about Mingxi going out there and landing a ton of takedowns, because if she does get on top of her, I don't think she's really gonna know what to do with it. I think Feng, being as long as she is going to have the ability to work back to her feet if that happens. And then the rest of the rounds, you're going to be on the feet with this girl who seemed to throw decent volume, who uses her length and her reach very, very well with those kicks. I think this is probably an ass kicking, if I'm being honest. She just didn't have the power in the hands. It's going to, turn the tides in this fight at any point. She didn't really have the volume either. The combination she was landing wasn't really phasing her opponents. So, I think Feng is going to come out here and probably look like a minus 300 favorite on the feet.
Yeah, I think so too. I mean, Ming Shi is a Taekwondo girl. I'm 5'2". It's going to be tough to implement some Taekwondo when you're that much smaller. Zhou Feng, she started her career 2-2. And then, I mean, she was what? That was 3 years ago, her last loss. So she was 19. Since then, she's rattled off 8 wins in a row. Like you said, I think on the feed, this is probably going to be one-way traffic. I mean, Ming Shi, she's pretty tough, and she's been fighting girls that really try to take her down, and her takedown defense is solid. She works to get up pretty well. But on the feet, I mean, I don't think she's going to have a ton to offer. So I got to go with Zhou Feng to get this one done. And we move on to some more flyweights. The flyweight title bout of the night. We got Dang Hoon Choi as the favorite, taking on Kiru Sahota, plus 126. I think the line is starting to come down towards the Sahota side, and maybe that could be due to the frame that this guy's going to bring. 5'10", 73-inch reach. He's going to be 5 inches taller and have a 7 or 6.5 inch reach advantage. Interesting way to look at this one, because Dong Hoon Choi, undefeated. He's looked okay in his road to the UFC fights. They're both split decisions, but I don't think they were to complete trash cans. I don't think they're the best fighters, but I don't think they're just straight up bad. And Kuro Sahota, kind of the same thing, man. Split decision and a unanimous decision. I wasn't really impressed with either guy watching film, so maybe you have a better lean, but what do you think?
No, I wasn't either, really. I mean, when I watched Choi's last fight against, I'm drawing a blank on his first name, but his last name, Bisht.
Indian.
Yeah. Dude, this guy was bleeding pretty early in the fight. Like, this guy was getting touched up a little bit, had a, cut near his eye he was bleeding out of. Eye was starting to swell. His mouth was all bloody. The guy does get hit, but at the end of the day, he stays pretty composed in there. He works in his leg kicks really, really well. I think he landed nearly like 80 significant strikes in that fight, and almost half of them were leg kicks. So I think that can be hard to deal with for a taller, skinnier guy like Kiro Sahota. But Sahota's on the feet has shown, like, if these two get in a kickboxing match, I think he'll be able to hold his own. I don't really see either one of these guys going for a bunch of takedowns by any means. Choi was taken down twice in his last fight. For Sahota, 2 fights ago, was taken down 9 times. So I think both these guys look to stay away from the wrestling and they strike it out. Man, Sahota, though, with the 5'10", 5 inches taller, he's going to have almost 7 inches of reach advantage on him, and they both have a similar style of striking. I think Sahota's movement can cause some problems for Choi here, just because he's so wiry and back and forth. Yeah, I mean, I'm thinking about taking a shot on the dog here. Maybe not for a bet, but as my pick, just because I wasn't super impressed with Choi. He, like I said, he's composed, but almost fights with a little less urgency than I'd like him to. Whereas Sahota's kind of, amped up, ready to go. So yeah, I'll take a shot on Sahota here at plus money.
Yeah, that's what I saw too. I mean, the guy can get caught standing and staring a little bit, and I think that could be intensified against a 5'10" guy. Like, he's not going to be able to reach him, sit in that range. So he's already a guy that stands and stares. If you've got a big, tall guy in front of you, maybe that turns in a little bit more. And I think Sahota, I don't really think too highly of Sahota, but I think he could win this fight just based on pure volume and just activity, because I think he could be able to land his jab. He's a lot longer, And I don't know why this guy has ever offensively wrestled in his fights, but he has. I don't understand it. You're so much bigger, so much taller than these guys, and he's like shooting for double legs.
Yeah.
Makes no sense to me. So, fight IQ, probably not the best. Overall skill set, I think the guy's striking is kind of awkward, but considering his frame, it kind of makes sense. I'm going to just take the slight dog here at Sahota, just considering the intangibles that he's going to bring. I hope he comes in with a good game plan of stay at range, pick him apart, and he could probably win this fight. So give me Kiru Sahota for the pick.
Choi also both wins on road to the UFC split decision. So, I mean, if you're going to I could see this being another split decision type of fight.
Yeah.
If you're going to split decision, I'll take the plus money all day.
Yeah. And that brings us to the bantamweight road to the UFC title fight. Su Young-yu taking on Belgian Jenisuly. Jenisuly comes in as the underdog, and Su Young-yu sitting at minus 143. This is a very interesting matchup for me. I don't think either guy is that great, but I think both guys, the grappling that they bring to this fight could be interesting to watch. Su Young-yu spams takedowns. He averages 6 in his 2 road to the UFC fights. Jenisuly, not as many takedowns, but he is a guy that hunts the submission. Whenever you're on the ground, he's going to be looking to try to end the fight. He's got a good amount of submissions on his record. And in his road to the UFC fights, he got a round 2 rear naked choke and then hit a little decision victory his last time out against Tokitaka Nakanishi, which was not a banger. What do you think about this one?
Yeah, no, I mean, this is both these guys are so low volume on the feet, and they do all their movements, everything is to try to set up the grappling. And Su Young-yu, more so of like a pure wrestler. This guy's going to look for the double legs. He's going to look to put you on your ass, control you. But I like, I can't even hardly say it. Gillespie. We're going to call him Gillespie on my end. I mean, I like his back takes. 2 fights ago, had a couple of takedowns, was able to take the back in that second round, get the submission, rear naked choke. He's more like actively hunting finishes, actively hunting submissions, and he lands over a significant strike more per minute on the feet. I mean, you look at Su Young-yu, the guy's 1.77 significant strikes per minute, and that's with landing 8 takedowns against guys. Like, he's not really doing any work on the top either. And I do think Jenisuly is, I think he's a scrambly guy. He's going to be hard to pin down, and in the process, he can catch you in something. So this one's pretty straightforward to me. I'm not high on either guy. I kind of hate this style. But, plus money on Jenisuly, who just seems a little more dangerous on the ground. And you got to think this fight's going to the ground at some point. He also lands more volume on the feet. I'm going to take him for the pick here. Underdog can't go wrong in this situation, man.
Yeah, I think this fight could go 2 ways. I think Su Young-yu, if he gets a takedown on Jenisuly, I think he could ride out some top time because Jenisuly will accept position on his back for a good amount of time. And then the next round, he'll probably come out, try to stuff the takedowns and try to get into some favorable positions. So if he can stuff takedowns, then I think he might be the better striker because I don't really rate Su Young-yu's striking that much. I mean, it's not super high volume and it is not really that powerful. So these are 2 grapplers, and Jenisuly to me is the more dangerous grappler. So I'm going to side with the dog in this one. I think, if he could just avoid giving up minutes of top time, I think he can win this fight. So I'll take the slight underdog, Jenisuly, to get this one done.
He's a little bigger in there too, kind of like the last fight. 5'9" versus 5'6" with 5.5 inches of reach advantage.
And he's Chinese, fighting
Long
in China.
limbs.
You never know. So.
China.
All right. Now we're done with the road to the UFC. It brings us to Ozzy Diaz taking on Ming Yang Zhang. Ming Yang Zhang's going to be the home crowd favorite. He comes in at minus 330. Ozzy Diaz getting signed to the UFC. Why? I have no idea. This man got knocked out by Joe Pyfer on the Contender Series. He took 2 years off and then decided to give another crack at it. He's picked up a couple wins at light heavyweight. He gets signed. They send him over to China. In my eyes, I think they sent him over to China to get knocked out. So it's Ming Yang Zhang for me. It's Ming Yang Zhang round 1 KO. What do you think?
Yeah, I would. I'd have to lean that way. Lean that way too. I mean, Ming Yang Zhang, he's a big guy. He's thick in there. Leg kicks, right hand is very powerful, like we saw in his UFC debut, and he's just got a ton of finishes. Regardless of who he's fighting. I know there's been questions about his record because the dude has, let's see, yeah, over 24, 23 professional fights. If you go back far enough, some of these guys just aren't the best. He's got a handful of losses as well. He's been knocked out by lesser guys. That's the one thing that concerns me here. If Ozzy Diaz can stay safe in the first couple of minutes, he's capable of landing one of those big shots. He's a guy who's got 9 professional wins, 7 knockouts. He's not out there really swinging for the fences every time, though. He's a guy who kind of will, touch and go here and then land that big one, kind of keeps you guessing on what's coming. But man, watching him get beat by Joe Pyfer, like you mentioned, the layoff, and Zhang is a pretty intimidating guy in there. He's going to be a little shorter. The reach is going to be the same, but the dude swings hard and he hits very hard as well. Somebody's getting knocked out in this fight. I mean, both guys have been knocked out. Zhang's actually been knocked out quite a bit and finished quite a bit. So I don't expect this one to go too long. I got to stick with Zhang, man. Like you said, I think he's getting flown over to, or Ozzy Diaz is getting flown over, kind of get this knockout loss in front of Zhang and his home crowd. I think this is a guy that they see the power. They think they can build off of him. And why not?
Yeah, I don't think Ozzy Diaz is. He's going to be like 30. He's 33. He'll almost be 34 at the time of the fight. I just don't know why they would bring this guy in other than to get him knocked out. And I don't really rate Ozzy Diaz overall as a fighter. I think he's pretty slow. I don't really think he's the most durable guy. If you watch his latest fights, he's actually getting hurt in a lot of them against these guys in LFA. So yeah, I think it's Ming Yang Zhang gets it done first round KO. Moving on, we got a nice little matchup here. We finally made it to some decent fights. Volkan Oezdemir coming in as the underdog, taking on Carlos Ulberg at minus 295. Ulberg been on a tear. He is 10-1. He's on a 6-fight winning streak. A lot of hype. I mean, he was supposed to fight Roundtree, and then Roundtree pulled out. He's supposed to fight Anthony Smith, and then Anthony Smith had to find a new opponent because Carlos Ulberg pulled out. So then here we are. He's getting flown to China, taking on Oezdemir. Oezdemir, back-to-back wins, round 1 sub against Guskov, and a round 1 KO against the man, the myth, the legend, Johnny Walker. I think this is going to be a fun fight. I'm actually really looking forward to this matchup. And I've been a big Volkan guy throughout my career, and I'm really trying to see if Volkan can maybe win this fight. What do you think?
Yeah, it's a weird one because, I mean, you would expect Carlos Ulberg being the, slightly younger guy. I mean, I think a lot of people probably are going to think Carlos Ulberg is way younger than Volkan just based off their careers at this point. But, 33 for Ulberg, 35 for Oezdemir. And if you look at the level of competition, Oezdemir has been in there with killers. He's beaten the guys he's supposed to, and Johnny Walker. And, the Bogdan Guskov win's pretty good now. I mean, you look at Guskov, he's looked pretty sharp after that fight. He's only lost. I mean, Krylov, that's a dangerous guy on the feet, or on the ground, excuse me, with good wrestling, and he was kind of able to implement that in that one. But Magomed Ankalaev, probably next in line for a title shot. Yuri Prohaska has been the champion and fought back for the belt multiple times. Dominic Reyes went toe-to-toe with John Jones. Anthony Smith, been a staple in the top 10 forever. Daniel Cormier, one of the greatest 205 to ever do it. Like, those are his losses. Is Carlos Ulberg one of those guys? I mean, maybe in the future. Not yet, that's for sure. And Oezdemir, he can kind of kickbox with the best of them. So as long as he's not getting knocked out early, I mean, while these guys are standing at range, I think it's going to be pretty evenly matched until either Carlos Ulberg knocks him out or just has a little more cardio in the tank in the second and third. But Oezdemir is a guy you can't sleep on, plus 220. I don't know if it's high enough for me yet to really take a flyer on him, but I expect Carlos Ulberg to be heavily parlayed this week.
Yeah.
I expect this line to grow a little bit too, which makes me curious on this Oezdemir side.
Yeah, I think you're paying a pretty hefty price on Ulberg here because this is his toughest fight. Like out of all of his UFC fights, and he's a 3-1 favorite. And he's actually 34 now. He just turned 34 2 days ago.
Oh shit.
Um, yeah, I mean, I think Ulberg is going to be better at range, but he's probably going to be fighting off the back foot a good amount, trying not to let Volkan get into boxing range, where I think Volkan's combinations will probably be a little bit better inside the pocket. He's a guy that he can smash some low kicks from kicking range, but he's not a super long guy, and his power really comes when he's in tight and he can hit those big left hooks or like a big uppercut, something like that. So Volkan's probably going to be looking to try to pressure, and Ulberg's going to be off the back foot, very good footwork. He's great at fighting at range, but as far as what the judges are looking at, Volkan's probably going to be the guy pressuring. And if he can get him trapped up against the cage and unleash some combos, then Ulberg's got to watch out. Because I mean, Oezdemir's got some big power, and I don't think Ulberg's really faced a guy with that type of power. I mean, it might
Kennedy
be
and Zechiku.
Yeah,
it might finished by Kennedy.
It might be a little bit overrated, Oezdemir's power, but still, it's light heavyweight 205, and he's a guy that has put out a good amount of people. So I'm tending to lean towards Oezdemir if I'm going to bet it. But in my eyes and in my head, I think it's probably an Ulberg like 29-28 decision victory. I don't know that he puts out Oezdemir. I think Oezdemir can get out of the first. I think he's all right. But he's got to watch out for that lead left hook from Ulberg. That's always nice. Little shot jumping in. And if Oezdemir is not ready for it in that first, he could easily put him out. But, the last guy that he fought was Alonzo Menafield. Alonzo Menafield just ran across the cage and asked to get hit in the face. So I don't think Oezdemir is going to do that. I hope not. And I think if the fight plays out how I think it will, I think it'll be pretty close. So I'll take Oezdemir for my pick. I think that's probably the value side. Not sure if he actually gets it done though. I mean, it's kind of a cop out, but it's just kind of how I see it going. I think if it goes to a decision, it'll be pretty close. But on the feet, I think either guy could find a knockout. So,
yeah, I mean, if Oezdemir comes out here and just avoids the big left hand of Ulberg, I mean, I have a feeling he's such a veteran and he's so good with the kickboxing. Like, I think he can chew up Ulberg's leg early in the fight too. Like, he's very sneaky with that low leg kick. If he gets that going, like, that's something that Ulberg hasn't had to deal with. I mean, Ulberg hasn't fought these guys that are, on his level of kickboxing. So
it's a great point, because if he smashes some low kicks early, I mean, that'll slow down the movement from Ulberg. And if you remember the Oezdemir Rakic fight, I mean, Rakic had a big old goose egg on his leg.
Dude, they're heavy. They're heavy.
Yeah, they are heavy. It's going to be a good one. I'm looking forward to this one. Ulberg could be the parlay buster of the week. All right, now we got Bang Bang Wang Gang. Long Wang coming in at minus 670, taking on Gabriela Fernandes, sitting at plus 430. And this one just keeps growing. Everybody's on the Wang Gang this week. I saw Wang Gang at minus 1,000 like a day ago. I think it's come down a little bit. I think she's sitting more around like minus 700, minus 800. But this line is pretty nuts, man. This line's pretty nuts, just considering Wang Gang's only had one UFC fight, and it was Victoria Leonardo. And she knocked her out clean. Don't get me wrong. This girl's kickboxing is pretty damn good. But she's only had one fight in the UFC, and she's gone to a good amount of decisions. I mean, a third of her fights have gone to decision outside of the UFC. So, yeah, I don't know, man. I'm definitely not playing Kong Wang at minus 800 or whatever. I think she probably wins the fight. But Gabriela Fernandes, she's not a bad striker. She's got some power. I don't think it'll be enough, but this is crazy. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it is tough because Victoria Leonardo, so hittable, so slow, terrible UFC career, and Wang Kong did exactly what she's supposed to. But Gabrielle Fernandez is bigger. She's super athletic and strong, and kickboxing is kind of her forte. That striking, it's going to be another girl who's going to want to strike with Kong, and As the fight goes on, I think it'll kind of even out. I think Wang is going to have the advantage with the speed and the power early, but if it keeps getting longer and longer and longer, I think Gabriela Fernandez is a girl who can kind of work herself back into the fight. Now, Gabriela, split decision over Carly Judici. Oh man, you look at that and you watch that fight. She landed a lot of good volume. She landed a couple takedowns, but Carly and Kong Wang, little bit different planets there in my opinion, especially with the power. So, and also Carly in that fight was able to land 169 significant strikes on Gabriela. I think she's a little hittable. While I think she is skilled and has decent kicks and is pretty athletic and strong, I just think she's a tad hittable. And then Wang, obviously, with some of the better power we see in the women's division, I do think Wang wins. But I would be kind of worried about her coming out with a little bit of hype after she just got that early round 1 knockout and just goes for it the first and can't get it. And then I think it gets really interesting after that. So Wang's going to be the pick. If you're parlaying a minus 670 in women's MMA, you're just asking for trouble. So please don't do that. But I think she should be able to get it done here. But, watch out if this turns into a technical kickboxing match in the second and third.
Yeah, I mean, they should have just made Valentina Shevchenko. They should have just gave her a title shot at this point because it looks like nobody's going to give her a chance or a big fight. I mean, she's minus 670 against a girl that I don't think is terrible. And I mean, Fernandes has really only been losing when she's getting taken down.
Yeah.
So, I mean, she's not a bad striker. She's a unit too at flyweight. She's filled out, strong as shit, hits pretty hard. But I think Kong's movement is actually pretty damn good. And I think she'll be able to pick her shots, probably just be a lot faster and land that big right hand. And maybe she could put her out. But Fernandez has never been finished. But Wang power is a little bit different, man. I think she's got a lot of swag too. I like that. I like that from Kong Wang. She came out with the Joker face and put out Victoria Leonardo like she had no business being in there. That's what she should have done. I mean, what was she last fight? Like minus 800?
800? I was going to say 800, yeah.
Pretty similar. Actually, no, she was minus 1,300. Holy shit.
Oh, shit. Her knockout prop was like minus 175, I want to say.
Was it really? Wow. Okay. Well, yeah, I don't know. I think the question would probably be, does she finish her or not? She couldn't finish Wu Yanan, which is interesting. Wu Yanan's not very good. And Amina Hadaya. Oh, man. Amina Hadaya. Where do I know that name from? Maybe I don't.
What's her record?
5-3.
Okay.
She just looks similar to like a PFL fighter, but she's not. All right. Either way, Kong Wang is the pick. Let's move on. 2. Song Kanon taking on Muslim Salikhov. Salikhov comes in as the favorite. He is 40 years old. Song Kanon is 34. He is the underdog here. He pulled off the upset the last time the UFC was in that region. UFC Singapore. He beat Rolando Bedoya. He's the underdog here, taking on the vet, the grizzly vet himself, Salikhov. What do you got?
Yeah, man, this one interests me a little bit because Song Kanon, if he's not going to wrestle, I wouldn't think in this spot, and if he's not going to wrestle Salikhov, I look at the striking numbers. I mean, Salikhov doesn't get hit near as much. He's got a 63% striking defense, only gets hit with 2.92 significant strikes per minute. Like he's got knocked out by Randy Brown, who's super long, really good right hand. But other than that, man, decision with Nicholas Dalby. He lost that fight, but Nicholas Dalby's a guy who's getting in there, got a couple of takedowns, really wore him down with the grappling in the clinch. Those are the type of guys that beat him, guys that can mix in takedowns and just try to put him against the cage and wear him down. I just don't really see it out of Song Kanon, and Song Kanon is extremely hittable. This guy gets hit with 5.84 significant strikes per minute. And Salikhov, like you look at him, you're going to think he's a wrestler, grappler, Dagestan guy. This guy's striking. He's got that kung fu style. He throws a lot of spinning kicks. He hits pretty hard. He can knock you out. And, in the last couple of fights, even though Song Kanon beat Ricky Glenn, I mean, before that, Kevin Jousset was able to tune him up with 134 significant strikes. He beat Rolando Bedoya, but Bedoya landed 112 on him. Bedoya showed that he kind of sucks in his last fight, and before that, knockout by Ian Gary and Max Griffin. So I'm not really trusting his chin. I don't trust his striking defense. I think he gets outstruck in this spot. I don't think he's the statistically on paper he has high volume, but he just whatever he's doing in there, he's just not landing significantly as of late. And I think Muslim Salikhov will. If anybody goes to the grappling and wrestling in this fight, I think Salikhov is going to be able to handle his own. He averages more takedowns. He's got a decent takedown defense. He's 40 years old, but I just don't know if Song's going to press this pace. It's going to wear Salikhov down like we've seen other guys do. I really don't. I think Salikhov can win the first 2 rounds here based off volume and power. And I don't really think Song Kanon has that killer instinct anymore. He's going to go out there and look for a finish late in the fight. So, yeah, I'm going to take Muslim Salikhov to get it done. I see a lot of people taking Kanon Song as the dog, too. It just makes me nervous.
Yeah, I don't have the mental bandwidth, the mental health to run a Song Kanon bet, man. I just can't do it. The guy has just always failed me in every aspect, and I don't see why I should trust him here. I mean, Salikhov, he's pretty washed. Like, he's 40 years old. He's coming off a win, but like it was a close split decision against Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio is a lot better than Song Kanon, in my opinion.
Yeah,
but
I think so.
Salikhov has this ability to just lull you into a boring striking match. And I think he's probably going to do that to Song Kanon, because Song Kanon, I don't think has like you said, doesn't have a killer instinct, doesn't have much volume, doesn't have much pressure. I just don't really think he's a great fighter. And as much as I want to take the plus money against a 40-year-old Salikhov, I just can't really do it. And one thing I was considering is like Salikhov going to China to fight the Chinese guy. There's a little narrative there. But then I looked at Salikhov's Tapology. Salikhov made his career in China. Okay, his career was made fighting Kung Fu in China. So he likes fighting in China. He's undefeated in China. Actually, not so. I guess not in Sanda or whatever, but those are the Kung Fu fights on Tapology. But he's had a few MMA fights in China, and he's won all those. Although in the UFC, he's lost to the only Chinese fighter that he's faced, Li Jingliang. He got knocked out by him. So that's all narrative bullshit. But I think Salikhov is going to be my pick. This is one I'm probably going to lay off on, though, because I'm not laying the chalk on Salikhov. But I'm going to pick him for the win because Song Kanon I can't trust the guy anymore. I'm not going to do it.
I mean, he just seems so flat-footed lately. Like, his movement isn't as good as it once was. And, Salikhov's hopping in and out. He's got good movement. And, fighting Ponzinibbio. Ponzinibbio is a guy the first 2 rounds that doesn't stop moving. And he's able to win those rounds against him on the judges' scorecards. I kind of think Song's just going to be a little bit of a sitting duck. Like, he might land some big shots here and there. But other than that, I think he's just going to kind of stand in front of him. And I don't think that's what you want to do against Salikhov.
Kind of a gross fight, in my opinion.
Oh, yeah.
Not about it. All right, let's move on to the co-main event. We got Yan Xiaonan coming in as the favorite, taking on Tabitha Baby Shark Ricci at plus 162. Ricci is the younger fighter at 29 years of age. Yan Xiaonan coming off the title fight where it was one of the weirdest fights because I was there in person and she should have got choked out in like the first round or the second round. I don't remember. And then she dropped Weili Zhang. And then for the rest of the fight, she just pretty much got dominated. She was getting taken down. She was getting worked on the ground. And she just couldn't really find much success outside of that one knockdown. I think Yan Xiaonan's striking is really solid. I think her footwork is pretty solid. But I think at times she can be a little bit too low volume. And her takedown defense, I don't think is very good. And she's shown in many of her fights she can get taken down and she can be controlled. So Tabitha Ricci here as the underdog. She has been on a nice little streak of just all-out aggression throwing caution to the wind, going to a decision, flexing those cheeks, and getting that judge's decision. She's just been able to win these split decisions. I guess it was a unanimous decision her last time out, but honestly, I thought she should have lost against Angela Hill. Plus money on Tabitha Ricci, because I think this fight's going to a decision, man, and I think Tabitha's output might just win it for her. What do you think?
Yeah. I mean, Tabitha puts herself in this position to win all of these decisions because of her output. I mean, Angela Hill, I thought, won the fight, like you said, but Tabitha landed over 100 significant strikes in that fight. She landed 3 takedowns as well. Even against like Tisha Pennington, man, she got outlanded 80-54, but she's just always busy. She's always doing something. It looks good to the judges. The only loss that she's really taken, actually two, is one is the Manon Farrow in her debut. That's a tough ass debut to have. And then Lupi Godinez in a split decision, which was very close. Everybody else she's beaten, but she still is on that like middle tier of the division. She hasn't made her way up to the top girls like Yan. I mean, Yan Shannon is fought, Zhang Weili in her last fight. One that she probably went out a little bit. I thought the fight could have been called, should have been called. She worked her way back into it and made it a dog fight. She landed 3 takedowns on Zhang Weili, landed some big shots, had her in trouble. Fight before that, knocks out Jessica Andrade. Before that, puts 113 significant strikes and kind of a beating on Mackenzie Dern in some spots until later in the fight. So, I mean, she's fought the higher level girls. She has more experience fighting higher levels of competition. The one thing that I struggle with on the Ricci side is that she rushes in with these significant strikes and throws these blitzing combinations. That can get you caught against the Zhang Xiaonan, in my opinion. Like, that's kind of, Xiaonan is going to sit back and wait for that. And if she catches her, I think she's going to do damage in this spot. I think Ricci going to land way more volume. I think Xiaonan going to land the bigger shots by far. And in the wrestling department, we've seen Xiaonan taken down, but against really, really solid wrestlers like Zhang Weili, like Carla Esparza. I think Tabitha is more of a grinder. I don't know if she's more of a pure wrestler that's going to be able to take her down over and over. I mean, Xiaonan's going to be bigger. She's going to be stronger, should be stronger. I think it's going to be a difficult night if Tabitha wants to go to wrestling route. I think she's got to eat big shots and try to land volume and win it that way and just try not to get clipped. But Xiaonan has improved a ton, too, each and every fight. Outside of the Zhang Weili fight, which she looked good in a lot of the time, she seemed like she's improving and at a very, very high level, too. So I think Xiaonan gets the fight done in a very, very close one, not one I'm willing to bet at this point. When I first looked at this fight, I was like, man, Xiaonan is going to spark this girl. Like, she's going to go out there and put a beating on her. But Ricci just has that tendency to make fights extremely close because she'll put you against the cage. She doesn't have any problem holding you there. She's going to throw volume. But, man, the one thing I did notice, last thing I'll say, is against Angela Hill, Ricci got a little tired. It was a high-paced fight. Anybody would get tired. And those arms and those punches looked like Jell-O at the end of the second, into the third. They didn't have anything on it. And if she starts doing that, I think she gets countered quite a bit in this fight.
Yeah, but so is Angela Hill. I think if she comes out with that pressure, it just kind of just maraubs people. Just like always in your face, pushing you up against the cage, always throwing these little arm punches that you have to worry about. You got to respect at least. I think I got to go with the plus money here. I mean, at least, Tabitha Ricci's the up-and-comer in this spot. Yan got the chance at the title. She got dominated pretty much. And you never know how they're going to bounce back from getting dominated. And considering she's 35, she ain't got like some great future left. So, Tabitha's 29, entering her prime. I think she could come into this one, make it close, throw her up against the cage. As long as she doesn't get countered with some big shot, I think she's got to worry about that in probably the first round. But after that, I think the pace that she puts on her is probably going to wear Yan down. And if Tabitha can even just get some takedowns, get some top time, maybe she can have some success there of just slowing her down a little bit and not allowing her to get into a read where she can find a counter. I think she probably wins. So I'm going to take Tabitha Ricci. I've been a guy that's getting smoked on these decisions. So I got to run with the plus money here with Tabitha Ricci. If it goes to a decision, even though they're in China, I mean, they're probably going to have the same judges that they usually have. They usually fly out judges. So Yeah, I think I got to go with Ricci in this one, man. They love her. And hopefully they love her this week because I'll take her for the pick. And maybe I'll bet on her, man. Plus 170, I think it's about now. That's not bad for a fight that's probably going to go to a decision. You know, she's going to have a lot of output. So, yeah, I'll take Ricci. That brings us to the main event. Petr Yan coming in as the favorite against the surging Deiveson Figueiredo, plus 235. Figgy is the older fighter at 36 years of age. Ever since moving up to bantamweight, he has looked great. He's been there, done that. But so has Petr Yan. So two guys that have reached the pinnacle have fallen back, but still are some of the best in the world. Very interesting matchup. I love the fight. I'm interested to hear what you got to say about it. What do you think?
Yeah. Well, starting off, man, I was a little shocked to see Yan at over minus 300. If I'm being honest, like not saying he shouldn't be the favorite, but that's a big price tag for a guy who's 1-3 in his last four. But I mean, it's hard to go off that because looking at his record, man, he beat Song Yadong in a super close fight. Before that, Merab, current champion. Before that, lost to Sean O'Malley, the champion before Merab. Before that, Aljamain, the champion before Sean. Like this guy has just been lined up champion after champion. And you know, the split decision against Aljo could have gone his way. The split decision against Sean O'Malley could have gone his way. Merab's the only one that he definitely lost. And then his loss before that was a DQ to Aljo in a fight that he was winning clearly. So this guy, every time you think he's going to slow down, like he's in the fight against Merab. There's just nothing you can do against 50 takedown attempts and 147 significant strikes on a guy whose motor is just insane over the course of 5 rounds. For Yan, though, against a guy like Figueiredo, I would expect Yan to have a better gas tank. Yan's somewhat of a slower starter. Maybe he drops that first round. He's going to have to work back into this fight a little bit, which is why that surprises me that he's minus 320. You know, from a strictly boxing standpoint, Petr Yan's a better boxer than Figueiredo. But Figgy's he's pretty powerful. He's strong with his punches, and his striking's it's slick, man. He hasn't gotten this far in the UFC and been champion at flyweight, beating and fighting the best guys in the division for that long without really good striking. So, you know, I don't know if he's going to go in there and mix in the wrestling and have a ton of success against Yan. Yan's pretty good with his judo and his takedown defense. And, you know, if Figgy does that, I see him being the first one getting tired here. So if you give me all of those things mixed in together, I just think Jan's probably going to edge this thing out over the course of 5 rounds unless he, you know, knocks out Figueiredo. I don't expect Figueiredo knocking out Yan. Yan is extremely tough. But we have seen Figgy, you know, hurt, cut, beat up by Brandon Moreno. And now we're up a division against the super, super clean boxer in Yan. So I'm picking Petr Yan to get the win. But I think this line's a little insane.
Yeah, I think maybe Yan at like minus 200.
I was going to say 200. Like that's probably where I'd put it.
Minus 300 is a little bit much, but you know, it's probably a decent live betting opportunity after round 1. That's kind of always the case with Petr Yan. But you know, I think Deiveson, how does he win this fight exactly? I mean, does he need a knockdown in a round? Does he need to take the back? Because maybe there's an opportunity for him to take the back if Petr Yan stuffs a takedown, kind of like how Aljo did it.
Yeah.
Taking the back and keeping it there for a round. But on the feet, I think Jan's going to have a lot more volume. I think he's going to be similar in speed. I think he's going to be, I mean, he's never been knocked down in the UFC. He's going to be durable. So on the feet, I think Petr Yan wins this one pretty handedly. Like, I mean, Deiveson, the fight against Moreno looked pretty slow. Like, Moreno was piecing him up on the feet, looking pretty good. And then he goes up to 135. And his win over Rob Font. Rob Font's pretty slow.
Yeah.
He's just a lot faster. Landed some takedowns. Rob Font has no takedown defense. Fight against Cody Garbrandt. Cody's piecing him up in the first. Cody's a fast fighter. Takes him down, takes his back, chokes him out in round 2. Chito Vera, slow, hittable, loses the first round of every fight he's ever been in. And then it comes down to a 3rd round, basically. and he lands a knockdown on Cheeto, where Cheeto is coming off a beating of a lifetime to Sean O'Malley. So I don't know, man. I think Figgy's run at bantamweight is pretty overblown. And I think he's got a matchup here against Yan where Yan's going to be just as fast. He's going to be more technical. He's going to have more volume. He's got rock solid takedown defense. So I think Figgy's either going to need to land knockdowns in rounds to win them, or he's going to have to successfully grapple. And by successfully grapple, I mean like take his back. Because if you just take down Petr Yan, he's going to work to get up, or he's just going to stuff your shots. So as this fight goes on, it's 5 rounds. Petr Yan's going to thrive in a 5-round fight. He's the younger guy coming off a win. I hope he's not injured because sometimes he'd be fighting with injuries. That's just never a good look. But even though against Song Yadong he was injured, still pulled it off. So I think this is a Petr Yan win. The line is a little bit wide, but I could see why it is the way it is. But like I said, probably better live betting opportunity after round 1. And Petr Yan's a guy that loses a lot of first rounds. So I think he wins 4 or 5 at a pretty high clip. And then maybe even finishes in 4-5, 3-4-5. So it's Petr Yan for me. I think he gets this one done. And Figgy's run at bantamweight comes to an end.
I was kind of thinking finish too late because I mean Yan, if you watch his boxing, dude, he invests in the body really, really well. Figgy's a guy we've seen slow down in the past too, and I mean if Yan can really get the boxing going and Figgy starting to fade at the same time, Peter has that knack to just really turn up the pace when he needs to, and he's good at smelling blood in the water and trying to pour it on. And if he does that, like I don't think Figgy, if he starts shooting these desperate takedowns, it's going to zap the energy even more. And Jan's going to stay super technical, and whereas Figgy's going to get out of pocket a little bit, in my opinion, late in the fight if he's tired. So interesting, man. 5 rounds. 5 rounds is big for Petr Yan here.
Yeah, I mean he went 2 for 3 on takedowns against Cheeto, and then he went 0 for 11 in the next 2 rounds. So if he can't have any grappling success, especially later in the rounds, and he starts to tire out, then it's probably not going to look good. So
yeah,
dude,
Petr Yan is so good with the leg kicks too.
He's good with everything.
He is. He's so. And last thing too, he's 31 years old. Like you look at him, and like if you didn't know that, and you've seen his whole career and just never looked at his age, you'd guess like 36.
Yeah,
it's a long career. Fought nothing but the best guys. But dude, he's like technically right in the middle of his prime, and those dudes are built different over there too.
For real. Whatever sauce that dude's on. They're probably both on some sauce, but you gotta love it. All right, those are the picks. Appreciate you for watching. Once again, if you want to get the bets, jump in the Home of Fight Picks premium membership. There's a link down in the description below. I believe code 309 is still active, so if you're watching this, give it a shot. Maybe it'll work. You get a 5-day free trial. If not, we'll keep you up to date on Home of Picks if we're going to run a little promo for this Saturday. Early card, 3 a.m. Eastern is when the prelims start. So set your alarms if you're a true diehard of the sport, because I really don't want to wake up at 3 a.m., but I feel like I got to. So I'll be doing it. I'm sure you'll probably be doing it as well.
I could tell myself I'm not going to do it all day long, but the day's going to come around and I'm going to do it.
Exactly. I'll probably be hitting the sports book on Friday, and I'll be putting some tickets in, and then I gotta be up and ready to watch the fight. So
yeah.
All right. Other than that, you got anything for the viewers before we hop out of here?
A break after this week, man, might be much needed, and then we get 2 big cards after that. I'm excited.
Yeah, we got some PFL action coming up too.
Yep.
PFL's
that next week.
Yeah, next week.
Yeah.
I think it's the day after Thanksgiving or something like that.
Perfect.
Championship fights. So looking forward to that. But appreciate you for watching. Till next time, the double leg signing out.